The book that was banned for 200 years because it revealed something that no one dared to say. Your soul is being programmed. And if you are brave enough to continue reading, you will discover a secret map of the stages of soul evolution, something that both religion and science have deliberately forgotten. Not everything that is forbidden is dangerous. Some things are forbidden simply because they are too true. That is an ancient rumor whispered in the darkness of monasteries, secret societies, and among those who seek the truth about the soul. And that rumor revolves around a strange book, an anonymous manuscript over 1,000,000 years old, handwritten in an ant-like handwriting in an ancient language of unknown origin. Its content not only challenges all contemporary religious doctrines, but also exposes the secret journey of the soul that no orthodox doctrine dares to talk about, and so it was banned. The history and circumstances of the book's appearance. The unnamed book, The Traveler in Time. No one knows the true name of the book. In the secret archives of the Montserrat Monastery in Spain, it is encoded under the symbol of a manuscript. In the Middle East, some copies of the Ragged Gnat are called by the simpler name, the Book of White Darkness. A paradoxical expression describing knowledge that both enlightens and frightens, but most esoteric scholars call it simply the Forbidden Book. The oldest trace of it was discovered on the border between Syria and Turkey. In the ruins of a burned Zoroastrian temple, Western explorers in the 19th century found a nearly intact copy wrapped in sheep's wool and hidden under an ancient stone pedestal. In a niche sealed with a very high wall, its author did not sign. But through the writing style, language, and metaphors, many scholars believe that he was an anonymous sage living in the transitional period between post-Platonic Greek philosophy and the 34th century mystical movement. Some believe that he was the product of a Gnostic society, people who pursued the ultimate knowledge of the soul and were condemned as heretics by the medieval church. The context of its creation, a period of spiritual crisis. The book was published in a time when both the East and the West were in crisis. In the West, after the fall of the Roman Empire, the spiritual vacuum allowed the Catholic Church to rise as an all-powerful force. However, it was accompanied by a wave of suppression of heterodox thoughts, Gnosticism, Hermeticism, Manichaeism, all of which were labeled as heresies. In the East, the schools of Mahayana Buddhism and ancient Persian thought were intertwined with Hinduism, giving birth to profound streams of thought on the soul, karma, and metaphysics. Between these two worlds, the Forbidden Book was born as a secret bridge, not belonging to any system, but daring to pierce through all to make a shocking assertion. The soul does not belong to God, nor is it part of karma. It is an independent entity on a journey of evolution beyond the will of the gods. Why is it called a forbidden book? Who banned it? The truth is frightening. What is written in the book is not a denial of religion, but it peels away all belief systems, pointing out that they are all temporary creations created to help the soul pass a certain stage in its journey. This makes major religious organizations from the Catholic Church to the Zoroastrian clergy consider it a serious threat. The content of the book is not worshiping anyone, not praying, not preaching morality. It only asks and answers questions that many people are forbidden to ask. What is the soul if it does not need to be saved? If death is not the end but only a door who is behind the doors, is all suffering just a classroom? Who then designs the curriculum? Because of these questions, the book was blacklisted by the Holy See in the year 1 C. Those who possessed or circulated it were condemned as heretics, even executed. Bans could not kill the truth. despite being burned, hunted down, and destroyed. Fragmentary copies circulated secretly among scholars, liberal Muslims, Tibetan Buddhist monasteries, and even in the secret notes of medieval alchemists. The lines are encoded with drawings, metaphors, or lotus interwoven among other scriptures. The book has become a legend, a myth, and for some, a compass. The book's fundamental idea is that the soul is not static. It is an immortal traveler. The book does not define the soul in the usual way. It describes the soul as a spark of consciousness born from an energy plane beyond the physical space, thrown into reality to learn to know itself. The soul does not fall into the physical world as a punishment. It actively chooses to incarnate even in suffering to develop new depths of perception. The soul is born blind, learning to see with the heart, not with the eyes. Excerpt from a rough translation of the first chapter. A view of the universe and death. The book sees the universe as a multi-layered learning system where each soul chooses the level of school appropriate to its level of evolution. Life is not a reward, and death is not a punishment. They are the gateways. The material world, according to the book, is a structured dream where souls interact to learn lessons about will, limits, love, and darkness. There is no hell, only painful classes. There is no heaven, only peaceful levels of consciousness. Philosophy throughout soul evolution. The most special point is that the book does not preach salvation, does not give an absolute moral model. Instead, it describes an internal development process where the soul constantly observes itself, surpasses itself, and gradually reaches a state called autonomous light, where the soul no longer needs to be guided by any force. All promises are chains. Only when the soul stops seeking rewards, it touches the truth, influence, and mysticism. Those who have been influenced by this book, although banned, the book still leaves a clear mark on the thoughts of many famous people. Jacob Bohm, the German mystic, wrote that the soul is a seed that falls on rocky ground and seeks to grow in the dark, which is almost identical to chapter 5 of the Master Urt. A Christian monk was considered a heretic for his arguments that man could approach God through his own nature without the need for an intermediary. Tibetan Tantric Buddhist monks, especially the Nyingma lineage, also had almost identical concepts of the bardo, a state between death and rebirth, which is exactly similar to Chapter 9 of The Secret Transmission and Encryption. The book was never published in its entirety, but its keepers encoded it into hundreds of subtexts in alchemical symbols, secret society paintings, Nostradamus-like prophecies, and even folk legends. There are records of some groups such as the Rosy Crew, the early Illuminati, and a branch of Sufi the Mystic using the book as the basis for initiation rituals. Each symbol a step, each story a piece of the puzzle, elements of prophecy, metaphor, and encryption. The book is not only a work of metaphysics, but also of prophecy and code. Some chapters use purely symbolic language, describing dark ages where people forget their soul nature and trade the inner light for temporary security. There will come a time when the soul will be bound by the very tools it has created. At that time, reincarnation will become meaningless because consciousness will be frozen in comfort. Some modern scholars read this passage and think of the technological age where people are immersed in information but lose understanding. In conclusion, the 200-year-old Forbidden Book is not just an ancient text. It is a mirror that reflects the reader's own being. The fearful will find it damning. The thirsty for truth will find it a silent torch to guide them in a world beset by prejudice, dogma, and control. Perhaps the most dangerous thing is not the wrong things, but the truths that are not allowed to be spoken, and perhaps the forbidden book is only forbidden because it reminds us that our souls have never been prisoners of any power. Second, the soul does not mature through time, but through the pain it has the courage to look straight at. If the first part of the 200-year-old forbidden book is a general picture of the nature and destiny of the soul, the next part is a detailed map that guides the soul through each layer of the evolutionary journey. These are not theoretical stages, but real experiences passed down from masters who have died and come back to life, or who have escaped from reincarnation without death. The book does not describe the path in words, but in ancient memories. It is as if the reader's soul has known all these things but has just forgotten them. And when reading this part, something begins to stir in the heart. A familiarity that cannot be named. The whole journey from the primordial fire to the light of freedom. According to the book, the soul is not immutable. It is not a fixed entity flying between lives. It is a process, a movement, a journey home. The book divides that journey into 7 major stages, but focuses on analyzing in depth 3 crucial stages: the initial beginning, the intermediate transformation, and the final integration stage. At each stage, the soul has to face its own designed lessons. If not passed, the soul will repeat the level, not as a punishment, but as a student who has not passed the grade. The first stage, the newborn soul, is ignorant and led. The state of the soul. The soul at this stage is like a seed that has just been planted in the ground, not knowing what it is, why it is here. It operates mainly based on instinct, reflexes, and pure emotions. The book calls this the period of deep sleep, where consciousness is covered by a thick layer of bone. The soul does not distinguish itself from the body, does not question death or the purpose of life. Manifested in human life. In human life, this is the stage where people live entirely for the need to survive, desire, control, and fear. Can be very intelligent, even rich, but the spirit is not yet awakened. All actions revolve around the possession of money, love, power, no sense of deep existence or self-questioning. The psyche often reacts strongly to fear of loss, illness, death. The newborn soul is not wrong, it is just not hurt enough to want to look up. The challenge and the lesson. The main lesson: experience the limits of the body and suffering. The challenge is not to be completely assimilated with the biological self. The goal of carrying the question of who I am, even if very vague, is already the starting point. The intermediate stage, consciousness crisis and regeneration. The state of the soul. This is the longest, most complex, and most important stage, where the soul begins to realize that it is something more than the body. But that realization does not come gently. It comes through shock, breakdown, or profound meaninglessness. The book calls this the stage of darkness and light, where the soul knows that something is calling to it, but is not yet capable of fully understanding or trusting the layers within the intermediate stage. The stage of doubt. The soul begins to doubt everything. Faith, divinity, morality, self. Existential crisis. What am I living for? Feeling of spiritual loneliness, lost among those who are still sleeping. The stage of learning, searching for spiritual knowledge. Reading, meditating, exploring religion, but often absorbing in breadth, not in depth. Beginning to have non-physical experiences, strong intuition. Strange dreams, déjà vu strings, feeling of having known this before. The stage of ego crisis, when starting to abandon the old world, the soul must face the disintegration of the ego, feeling disoriented, no longer the old person, but not knowing who you are. can fall into spiritual depression, a form of extremely painful but necessary transformation. The soul is not born in the light, it is forged in the midst of ruins and disorientation. The challenge and the lesson. The main lesson: let go of false identities and face the truth about yourself. The challenge: don't run away when all old beliefs collapse. The goal is to develop inner trust, the ability to see the light within yourself. The final stage: integration, liberation, returning to the source state of the soul. This is not a stage of perfection or absoluteness, but a state where the soul is completely synchronized with its higher self. There is no longer a need to control, no longer a fear of death, no longer a distinction between the sacred and the mundane. All is seen as a single movement, as a piece of music being played with the soul being both listener and creator. The book calls this stage the state of autonomous light, where the soul no longer has to learn through suffering, but through pure awareness. The manifestation in life of people who have reached this state is that they live very quietly, very deeply, very lightly, but not separate from the world. They can be Zen masters, painters, healers, farmers, without any specific role. Their actions come from love, not from duty. When the soul no longer tries to become it truly is itself, challenges and lessons. The main lesson is to pass on the light without forcing anyone to receive it. The challenge is not to fall into spiritual arrogance, thinking that you are superior to others. The goal is to be in complete harmony with the flow of the universe. There is no separate will. Where is your soul on this map? The book does not offer a rigid rating system. It emphasizes that the soul is unique and not everyone follows a linear order. However, you can reflect on yourself. If you live by instinct without questioning death or human nature, you may be in the newborn stage. If you are skeptical, disoriented, longing to find the truth but feel lost, you may be in the intermediate stage. If you feel every event deeply, live slowly, quietly, and no longer need anyone to confirm you, you may be reaching the final stage. The most important thing is not where you are, but whether you are honest with yourself or not. Applying to modern life, recognize the stage so as not to force yourself. Many people are falling into spiritual depression because they think they have to be enlightened quickly, awaken early, or be forced to leave the material world. The book clearly states that each soul has its own progress. Just like a tree needs time to grow roots before blooming, the soul needs a crisis stage before realizing who it is. Learn to move forward without forcing. The book gives a beautiful metaphor. If you are in a dark cave, don't try to run. Sit still, breathe, and let your eyes adjust to the darkness, and you will see the light in the distance. This is also true for modern life when faced with loss, crisis, or a sense of meaninglessness. Don't rush to find the answer. Listen, let the soul tell its own story to the end. The book does not end because the soul never stops. That forbidden book, even though it is more than 200 years old, has never been finished. Because according to the last words in the manuscript, every soul who reads this far, if they truly remember who they are, will become the one to write the next pages. Maybe you don't need to go to an ancient monastery or a secret manuscript. Maybe you are the manuscript, living, writing, going through each stage in this life. And maybe the most forbidden thing is not in the book, but in you. And here the journey to discover the stages of soul evolution revealed by the 200-year-old book has temporarily ended. But the inner journey of each of us is still continuing every day, every moment. If you feel like you are in one of the stages we just went through together, leave a comment below. Share your feelings, experiences, or questions because who knows? Your honesty might open a door for others. Don't forget to subscribe to the Mysterious Mind channel and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next videos where we will continue to decode the deepest layers of the soul, the universe, and this life itself. See you in the next videos where ancient secrets are still waiting to be awakened, yeah?